Chapter 16. Bobbie, Johnny, and Ben were off to find a witch. Ben seemed entirely uncertain about this plan, and it had been his plan to begin with. If Johnny had an option one way or the other, he was keeping his thoughts to himself. For her part, Bobbie was just happy to have something to do. As soon as they started moving again, the despair she felt back in Savannah Town had fallen away. A new hope had bloomed in the hollow space where all of her worries lived. That hope had carried her all through a long day of walking and on into the night. Bobbie had always thought that some people were naturally hopeful, that optimism was simply a personality trait. It wasn't until confronted with tragedy that she realized the truth. Hope was something you worked for. It took constant effort to seek solutions, to believe those solutions were out there in the face of ceaseless, harrowing problems. Because you could see the problems were undeniable, but the solutions, those had to be crafted. They were they were on a grassy expanse, but it wasn't quite like the plains that surrounded Plaintown. Even in the moonlight, Bobbie could see the grass here was slightly discolored, a less vibrant shade of green than she was used to seeing. Nearby, there were sparse trees strewn with vines, and a shallow pool of murky water, more like a huge puddle than a lake. Bobbie's boots made a squishing sound. "It's certainly wet here," she said. "I take you to all the nicest place, don't I?" Ben said Ben. "We should be right on the edge of the swamp now, in the middle of the night, which is good for Jubilant Johnny over there, but not great for us." He swiped at a vine with his sword. "Have your weapon ready. We could run into trouble pretty quickly." Bobbie did as he suggested, switching the lead to her offhand and gripping her sword with her right. She looked briefly from her gleaming iron sword to Ben's sorry stone version. "I've been wondering about something," she said, considering her words carefully. She was never entirely sure what could set Ben off. He seemed to have a lot of sore points. "You've been adventuring for a while now, right? So why don't you have better gear?" "I did have better gear," he answered. "Some pretty great stuff, in fact. But shortly before I met you, I lost it." "That seems careless," said Bobbie. "I took precautions," Ben argued, "but everything was stolen from me by someone I trusted, actually." "Oh," said Bobbie. "I'm sorry. That's hard." "Yeah," said Ben. "Thanks. Although—" "Oh, please don't," said Ben. "Please don't what?" "Please don't turn this into one of your big sister teachable moments," he said. "I don't do that," Bobbie objected, which earned a raised eyebrow. "I don't. I just thought it was worth pointing out that your reaction to getting looted was apparently to come to Plaintown so you could loot us. So maybe it's worth examining whenever you think the cycle of plundering is a problem, and if so, whenever your actions are partially responsible for perpetrating the cycle." Ben groaned, and Johnny echoed him. "Hey, I think he understand. I think I understand why he makes that noise now." Said Ben. "He's totally perpetrated by you." "So rude," said Bobbie. "I hope he wanted to wire the wild wolves that raised you so that I can ask them where they went wrong." As they walked, the ground became more sodden, and the trees grew closer together. Soon it was hard to see the moon past the towering trunks and the dense, hanging foliage. "I've never seen trees like these before," said Bobbie, and she pressed a hand to one as they passed. "They're mangroves," Ben explained. "They grow big and strong around water." He took another step and was suddenly up to his knees in swamp water. "Ick," he said. "I prefer solid ground myself. Johnny growled, which itself was unusual, but this time the timbre of it was different. It sent prickles down Bobbie's back. It sounded, somehow, like a warning. She raised her sword and turned to peer into the shadows beneath the trees. She saw a light, wavering and watery, a green lucent essence that she took at first as some sort of otherworldly flame. He heard stories of ghost lights haunting the overworld mirrors, luring unworried travelers to a murky drowned in doom. But she'd been certain those were just spooky stories meant to dissuade young villagers from leaving the safety of their homes. She rubbed her eyes, blinked furiously, and looked again. She saw now that it was no ghostly light, but instead a quivering, gelatinous mass. Its wet surface reflected the moonlight so that it almost appeared lit from within. It was a sickly shade of green, and as it propelled itself forward with a bouncing motion, Bobbie could see the shadowy impression of a face on its otherwise inhumane form. "It's cute," she said, lowering her sword. "Sure, cute," said Ben. "Too bad it's a malevolent ball of slime, intent on destroying us." Bobbie smirked. "You said about the llamas too." "Llamas are jokes, and everyone knows it," Ben said hardly. He stepped between Bobbie and the slime, brandishing his sword. "I'm starting to question your judgment." Ben waited until the slime took one more quivering leap forward, and then he slashed out with his sword. The slime, caught mid-jump, wasn't an easy target, but it did not fall to Ben's sword. Instead, it split apart, forming two separate slimes, each half the size of the original. "I'm questioning your judgment," Bobbie said, lifting her sword again, "because now there are two of them, and they're even cuter at that size." She thought, but did not say. She stood shoulder to shoulder with Ben, waiting to see if the slimes would press the attack. "Should we retreat?" she asked. "It's too dark out here," he said, "and there are way worse things than slimes. The last thing we want is to run into another threat while we still have slimes at our back." "Okay, then I've got the one on the left." Bobbie had been paying attention, just as Ben had before. She waited for the slime to make its move, and she caught it mid-leap. To her consideration, it split in half again. "This is ridiculous," she said. To her right, Ben was having the same issue. "Still think they're cute?" "I mean, kind of," she said. "Now they're pocket size." "Just smite them, please," said Ben. "Smite them?" she echoed. "Do adventurers actually talk like that?" Despite her teasing, Bobbie prepared to do as Ben had suggested. When Johnny leaped suddenly forward, gobbling up one of the tiny slimes in a single gulp. Said Bobbie, stopping in her tracks. "Ew," said Ben. "That can't be healthy." Johnny made a gurgling noise, and Bobbie decided they should take care of the remaining slimes before her brother tried to help himself 2 seconds. "Smite!" she said, thwagging the dirt with her sword. The remaining slimes were so small that they made for difficult targets. "Come on, Ben! Smite! Smite!" "I'm smiting," he said, laughing. Johnny watched them as they slashed at the tiny hopping mobs, and then he released a somewhat slimy burp. Chapter 17. The swamp was still and silent, except for the frogs moving just outside of their reach. Ben took a moment to enjoy the frantic hopping. He rarely had a reason to pass through a swamp, and he'd never seen the amphibians anywhere else. Bobbie seemed charmed by them too. Even her slobbering sibling stood transfixed by the sight, which was good because it kept the young zombie from rocking the boat, literally. After the slime smiting, Bobbie had directed Bobbie to collect the slime balls left behind. You never know what might come in handy later, she told her sagely, and he was pretty certain she appreciated the advice, even though she made a face at him. While she gathered the goods and kept jaundiced Johnny off his back, Ben had hacked into a mangrove to collect the wood he needed to construct a small rowboat. Then he realized that one of them was a murderous zombie, and he gathered enough wood to craft a second boat. I don't see why we're in separate boats, Bobbie called from across the water. Weren't you worried about getting separated? I'm worried about a lot of things, Ben answered. Getting my nose bitten off by your brother is pretty high on the list. Bobbie sighed. He's probably full after eating that slime, she said, as if that would make Ben feel any less concerned about the boy's appetite. It was in the heart of the swamp that Ben saw what he'd hoped and dreaded to see. The trees fell away, and the draping vines parted, and then a rickety structure loomed before them, rising out of the water on tall wooden stilts. Tall wooden stilts. In the moonlight, it looked like some strange, boxy animal standing on legs too thin to reasonably support its weight. There, Ben whispered, hoping he could be heard by Bobbie and no one else. That's a swamp hut. There should be a witch inside. I hope they're feeling helpful, said Bobbie. I hate to be turned into a frog or something. Oh, don't worry about that, Ben said. They'll probably just outright kill us. Bobbie chuckled weakly. And you think I'll be able to reason with them? I don't know about reasoning with them, said Ben, but I hope you'll be able to communicate with them, at least. He shrugged. I admit, it's a long shot. I've encountered a couple of witches in the past, and I couldn't make sense of anything they said, but it was true of the wandering trader, too, and you were chatting them up without any problem. And the witches know all about potions, right? Bobbie asked. All I can say for sure is that on 2 different occasions, a witch has thrown a potion at my face. He smirked. And if it happens a 3rd time, I'm going to start wondering if I'm the problem. You're the problem, Bobbie deadpanned. Ben ignored her jab. So, how do you want to do this? He asked her. I don't know, said Bobbie. I figured I'd just ask politely for information. Ben frowned. Sure, after we sneak into the witch's hut, knock them out, and tie them to a chair, right? What? No! Bobbie was obviously appalled by the thought. Why would they tell us anything after we invaded their home and threatened them? Because our threats would be very convincing. Adventure us, honestly, said Bobbie. You can't just go around acting as if you're entitled to everything. Please stop yelling, Ben said Ben. Bobbie appeared immediately remorseful. Ben, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I wasn't worried about my feelings, said in a low voice. I was worried you were being too loud. It was at that moment that a wicked cackle rang out across the water. Ben's gaze snapped up to the hut, where the figure had appeared in the open doorway. The figure resembled a villager, but wore a peaked hat and flowing purple robes. Despite being the source of the Ross's laughter, they did not seem especially good-natured. Witch, he said, pointing. Yes, thank you. I see them, Bobbie sang. Then, raising her voice, hello, kindly witch, maid of the mere brewer of brewing, esteemed wise person of the wilderness. The witch held a splash potion in her grip, and Ben gestured for Bobbie to get to the point already. Ahem, we are here on a quest and seek your aid, she said. You see, my brother has been transformed, and I was hoping you know may know of a cure, or that you might be able to invent one." The witch paced up and down the porch of the hut, waving a flax around and yapping unintelligibly. "Oh no," said Bobbie. I can't understand what they're saying." She turned to Ben. They almost sound like a villager, but not quite. I think I'm picking up on something on some hostility, though." "You think so?" said Ben. "Hostility. Hostility, you say?" With a sharp cackle, the witch hurled a flax at Bobbie. "Duck!" said Ben, but Bobbie didn't listen. She took the full brunt of the splash potion as the flax shattered against her. "Hey, that hurt!" "Why didn't you duck?" cried Ben. "My baby brother is right behind me," said Bobbie. "I couldn't let him get hit." "I've never been so glad to be an only child," murmured Ben, and he paddled out in front of Bobbie. "Hey, witchy!" he cried, waving his arms. "Why don't you aim over here instead?" "What are you doing?" Bobbie asked him over the witch's madcap cackling. "I have a shield. I'll be fine," he told her. "You sneak around back and build a staircase up to the porch." "And then what do I do?" Bobbie asked, already pounding away. Ben met an oncoming potion with his shield. It shattered, and he battered the lingering fumes away. "Try asking politely one more time," said Ben. "Really?" said Bobbie. "No," he said. "Hit them over the head with something heavy, or sick that nightmare you call a brother on them." That was a rude thing to say, and we'll discuss it later. Bobbie called as she paddled around the far side of the hut. Ben, through a combination of taunts, gestures, and experimental dance moves, managed to keep the witch's attention on him. As he doffed a fifth potion, Ben began to wonder when Bobbie would make her dramatic entrance. He kept expecting to see her sword poking through the witch, or perhaps Johnny would tackle the mob, sailing over the edge of the balcony and dragging the witch into the murky water below. Ben would have a perfect view of whatever ending befell the witchy anniversary. As he dodged a sixth potion, he caught up in a sing-song voice. "What is taking so long up there?" "We're done," said Bobbie, and her voice was not coming from above. She appeared from around the far side of the stairs, running her bow towards Ben. Johnny gnawing absently on a bone. "What do you mean you're done?" said Ben, and distracted. He ducked a thrown potion just in time. "I thought you were going to smite the witch." "It's always smiting with you," Bobbie said, and she smiled. "I went through the witch's things, found a recipe book with different formulas than Cleric Avery had. Maybe there's something in here that we can use." "And where did the bone come from?" Ben asked, a little bit afraid of the answer. "Oh, that was just lying on the floorboards," said Bobbie. "Is that sanitary?" asked Ben. "Well, we wanted to eat the cat," said Bobbie. So this feels like a good compromise." Ben sighed. "I guess zombies probably don't have to worry about germs," he said. Then he turned his head up toward the witch. "You don't know how lucky you are. If it had been me up there, you have been smited or smote." "I'm sorry about the burglary," Bobbie called up to the witch as she rode past Ben and back toward shore. "I want to break the callous cycle of looting, so I'll try to find a way to get your book back to you one day." As Ben rode after her, he called over his shoulder, "But we're keeping the bone." Chapter 18. The sun threatened to rise at any moment, and Johnny put up a fuss when Bobbie tried to put a pumpkin on his head. So Ben suggested they set up camp as soon as they had put a little distance between themselves and the witch. "This spot should be fine," Ben said, and he brought his pickaxe to bear against a low, soggy hill on the outskirts of the swamp. Within seconds, he had carved out a small space just below ground level, with a torch for light and rooms for beds and crafting stations. In case they decided to stay there for the day, Bobbie sat beneath the torch and immediately examining the book she stolen. "It's not completely coherent," said Bobbie. "It's mostly scribbles and drawings, but I can interpret some of it, especially the opening pages." She held it up for Ben to see. "Look at this first entry." Ben leaned in for a look, but as soon as he got close, Johnny growled menacingly. "Why don't you summarize it for me?" he suggested. Bobbie nodded. "Well, from what I can tell, the witch wasn't always a witch. They were a village cleric, and they used this book to record their experiments." She flipped through the pages. Something happened. A storm, a bolt of lightning. It transformed them. She looked at her brother, tied to his wooden post. "Sort of like Johnny, in a way," she said sadly. "Keep reading," said Ben. "I'll check our gear. Maybe patch things up and make some more torches. You hungry?" Bobbie frowned. "I don't think I can eat until we're clear of the swamp. It smells funny in here." "Yeah," Ben agreed. "Now that you mention it, it smells sort of like rotten flesh." I wonder what that could be." Bobbie sniffed the air, then grimaced. "All the more reason to find a cure," she said, and she turned back to the book in her lap. It was some time later, and Ben was gnawing on a loaf of semi-stale bread when Bobbie hopped suddenly to her feet. "It's here! It's actually here!" She looked over at Ben. A huge smile spread across her face. The witch must have been looking for a cure for their own condition. They were documenting cures for all sorts of things. Everything from poisoning and bad luck cures to zombification. She passed him the book, opened to a page with a hand-drawn illusion. He recognized the image immediately. "That's a golden apple," he said. It's a real thing?" Bobbie asked. "It exists?" "Yeah," said Ben. "They exist. They're even craftable." Bobbie took the book back and flipped to the next page. "We need one. If I understand this right, a golden apple, when combined with the effects of a potion of weakness, will cure Johnny completely and forever." Tears welled in Bobbie's eyes. I knew it was possible. I just knew it." "I guess I shouldn't have doubted you," Ben said. "That's right," said Bobbie, chuckling as she wiped at her cheeks. Are you a hugger?" she asked. "I think I'd like a hug." "Sure," said Ben, and he stepped toward her, then stopped short when Johnny growled and pulled at his lead. Or not," said Ben. "Maybe later?" Ben nodded. Her tears gone. "Tell you what," she said. "If you can tell me how to craft a golden apple, that will count as a dozen hugs in one. It's a simple recipe, but it will take a long time to get our hands on enough gold," Ben replied. "We might have better luck trying to find one. My buddy, Logan, found one once. Do you know where Logan is now?" "Well, no," Ben said, and he felt a little pang. "And anyway, he's ate that one. He said it was the most delicious thing he'd ever tasted, but I had to take his word for it. He did tell me where he'd found it, though. Hold on a minute." Ben rummaged through his things, pulling out maps he'd taken from the two cartographers' houses. He flipped through them, laying them out on the floor, searching for something he'd spotted earlier. "There," he said, pointing to a small rectangle in the heart of the forest. "A woodland mansion." He looked up at Bobbie. "It's not a sure thing, but you can sometimes find golden apples there." "A mansion, like in the storybooks?" Bobbie swooned. Is the family who lives there nice? Do they want nothing more than to share the bounty of gold-plated fruit and vegetables with well-traveled strangers?" "Yeah, sort of like that, except the complete opposite." Ben shook his head. I better take another look at our gear, and you should get some sleep, because we're in for a very tough fight. This time, when Bobbie failed to take his advice, Ben knew better than to take it personally. He told her to get some sleep, and he knew that she tried, but she was too anxious about their plan, too eager to get her brother back to normal. She laid in bed, but sleep wouldn't take her. Ben wondered if the fact that Johnny was looming right at the foot of her bed contributed to her insomnia too. He really watches over me when I sleep. She asked. He really watches over me when I sleep. She asked. Every time, said Ben. He won't let me get anywhere near you. We've come a long way, said Bobbie. His first few days as a zombie, he tried to eat me every chance he got. She seemed to consider something. Hey, come here, she said. Ben looked up from his crafting table. No way, he said. Didn't you just hear me? I get close, he gets bitey. Here, Bobbie said, and she tossed him an iron boot in his direction. Put that on your hand. Before he could object, she said, if you want it, we could skip the part where you whine about it and get right to the part where you do what I asked you to do. You underestimate me, Ben said, taking up the boot. I can whine while I do it, what you asked me to do. Is my hand going to smell like a foot after this? Johnny, look over there, said Bobbie, as she pointed to a very uninteresting wall of dirt. The zombie boy fully turned his head, however, gazing at the dirt as if it held some great secret. With the boy distracted, Bobbie slipped out of bed, grabbing Johnny's bone from the floor and handed it to Ben. He took it with his free hand. Great, said Ben. Now one hand smells like foot and the other smells like zombie saliva. This bone is awfully wet. He narrowed the bone. He narrowed his eyes at Bobbie, and that isn't whining. I'm just stating a fact. At the sound of Ben's voice, Johnny turned a glowing growl in his throat. He took a few steps forward toward them before the leap stopped him short. Okay, said Bobbie. I want you to get into his range. Offer him the bone, and what if he ignores the bone and goes after me? Ben asked. That's fine, he said. He can't shoot through iron, and he can't maneuver very much when he's tied to his post. Keep your armored hand up in front of you, and you'll be okay. Ben crept forward with both of his hands raised. Here you go, Johnny, he cooed. A nice salami chew toy just for you. He frowned. To be clear, I'm talking about the bone. I'm not slimy. Johnny ignored Ben's humor, and he ignored the bone. As soon as Ben was in range, the zombie attempted to bite him, as Bobbie had predicted. However, the boy's teeth couldn't penetrate the makeshift gauntlet. It didn't stop him from trying, though. Johnny kept his mouth asphyxiated to the boot, gnawing and drooling in equal measure. What is he even doing? Ben said. He's learning, Bobbie said. Eventually, he'll figure out that trying to bite you only gives him a mouthful of bland iron, and that he'll be much happier going for the bone. Eventually, echoed Ben. How long was this take? Well, for me, it took a few hours. That isn't too bad, said Ben. A few hours every day. Well, Bobbie clarified. For many days in a row. Ben looked at Johnny, who still nodded away futilely. I guess we all learn at our own pace, he said, sighing. But then he had an idea. So how about I give you a lesson now? Bobbie seemed worried. What do you want to teach me? So many things, Ben said. He smirked at her. But let's start with combat.